In 2008, the Arizona Department of Transportation was conducting an environmental investigation along Interstate 17 at Cordes Junction for a new interchange, when researchers discovered one of the richest deposits of Native American artifacts in the region. Archaeologists were quickly hired to determine the significance of the discovery, which was the easy part. What remains is unlocking the mysteries of the Antler House Village.
It's a very large village site. We found up to about 60 structures, and there were several people living here for at least a 200-year-long period. And we believe that they are affiliated with the Hohokam culture, which typically inhabits the Phoenix Basin as well as the Tucson Basin. So this is kind of the northern periphery of their culture area. And so we're here to try and figure out why these folks came up here, why they were living here, and what they were doing here at Antler House Village. We named the site Antler House Village because early on, one of the houses that we found during our initial trenching contained a burnt antler, and we actually found at least 2 or 3 other structures that contain antler within them. Antler itself has many different uses. It can be used in flint knapping, which is the term archaeologists use to describe the stone tool manufacturing. So the antlers would have been used as a fine tool to do the pressure flaking around the sides of, say, like when you're producing a spear point or a projectile point of sorts. Antlers also could have been used for more practical purposes, like within the houses we have very small plaster-lined hearths that they didn't actually cook in, but they used to heat the houses. And so they could have used the antler to bring in heated rocks or coals from an external fire and bring those into the house. And what we have over here is one of the many houses that we have opened up. And we excavate all of the houses manually so that we can get a feel for the soil and the internal stratigraphy within the houses and all the different artifacts and everything that are coming out. So what we do is dig by hand, and all of the soil that comes out of the features is then screened by hand by archaeologists, and they pull out all the individual artifacts, and those things include ceramics, flake stone tools, shell bracelets that are coming from the Gulf of California. We found some semi-precious stones, including turquoise. We're not sure where that's coming from yet, but hopefully we'll find out in our analyses, as well as obsidian, which comes from the Flagstaff area. We also have several ground stone implements which they would use to process their foodstuffs, like corn, as well as pinon nuts and mesquite beans, and those consist of manos and matates, which are large grinding stones that they would put the foodstuffs in and process them into flour. This is actually the largest house that we have here at the site. This spans probably about a 12-meter length north to south, which is almost double the size of most of the houses found in the area. So that's one of the reasons why this site is so unique, because we've actually found several houses that are quite larger than the average house. So what you're looking at here is actually the floor of the house, which is a house in a pit. So the folks who were living here would dig into the natural soil down to the caliche substrate, which is kind of this white layer that you're seeing here, and it's a calcium carbonate material that leaches out of the natural soil, and it forms a really nice hard pan. On top of that, they would have mixed clay with the caliche to make a plaster to go over the floor. So what you see now is a little bit uneven, but it would have had more of a level surface in the past. A lot of the houses here have been quite disturbed by rodent activity, as well as humans occupying the area for several hundreds of years. What we do, though, when we come down to the floor of the house, we see the caliche, and we're able to see the outline of the house in the natural clay. And once we get down to the floor, we find evidence of the superstructure in the form of post holes, which are all these holes that you're seeing here. So they would have used trees that they gathered from the hills and down by Big Bug Creek, which is about a 10-minute walk from here, to build the superstructure of the house. And the basic floor plan of the larger houses that we're seeing here is kind of a sub-rectangular shape, like I said, dug down into the native soil, into a pit. And they have east-facing entryways that protrude from the long axis of the house. And then the post holes typically follow the perimeter of the house, as well as within the interior we'll have 2 to 4 main support poles within the interior of the house. And so then those would have had cross beams and thatch put on top of it, and then all of that would have been covered with an adobe-like material. Another interesting feature of the Antler House Village, in addition to the very large houses that we're finding, is a proclivity for reusing the same pits. So several houses have been built on top of prior houses, and you can see a little bit of that here in this line of post holes and this floor groove that's intruding into the larger house here. So what we think that might be is one of 2 things. It would have been less effort to dig into the softer soil using the same pit where a house had been previously established, so it's less effort to build the house. But it also could be that families were coming back to the same spots generation after generation and reoccupying the very same spot that their ancestors lived in. We're not really finding a lot of artifacts on the floors of the houses themselves, which indicates to us that people actually took the time to clear out their house and pack up before they moved on to another spot. So although the majority of the artifacts that we're finding indicate most of the people who are living here belong to the Hohokam culture, we also have evidence that they were interacting with other groups from the north and from the east.
We may never know the answers to all the mysteries of the Antler House Village, but ADOT's archaeology team will make their best interpretation of what happened on this site more than 1,200 years ago.
It could have been a time of flooding and uncontrollable weather down in the valley, and so resources were being exhausted, and up here the climate would have been a little bit cooler, and with access to permanent water along Big Bug Creek, and there's a spring known in the area. There's nice alluvial floodplains there that make arable soil good for farming, so folks were probably able to produce a lot more food and able to sustain themselves here. So that could have been one of the reasons why they migrated up here. It's another reason why the folks could have come up here is that they could have been kind of liaisons between groups to the south and other groups to the north and to the east. So they could have been part of that shell trade, because those bracelets are found in areas further north of here. We haven't found any evidence of the manufacture of those shell bracelets here, but we have found quite a few of them in all of our features. So that might have been one material. Or they could have been trading with folks to the north and bringing obsidian down, which was a very fine lithic material that they would use to make their projectile points and other stone tools.
ADOT and EcoPlan intentionally hired several Native Americans to staff their archaeology team. Now the team shifts its work to their laboratory in Mesa, Arizona, to uncover more clues, utilizing processes like radiocarbon dating to determine if, in fact, these were the ancestors of the Hohokam tribe that traveled what is now the Interstate 17 corridor for hundreds of years in search of food and trade with other tribes. Near the conclusion of their investigation, they will display in Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott many artifacts from the 1 metric ton that was taken to the Mesa lab. And soon, the team will write a final report on the most significant Native American discovery in the region.
It was a great opportunity for me to come up here and to be able to see a village site of this size, and it's really something that you kind of feel blessed to be able to work on because it is such a unique site. Because the site was occupied for just one period in the cultural chronology during the Gila Butte phase, which is actually fairly early, and there aren't a lot of village sites from that time period that have been as thoroughly investigated as this, and especially of this size. It has the potential to contribute a lot of knowledge to the archaeological record, not just regionally here in the Prescott area, but the Hohokam cultural chronology overall. So that's really exciting to be able to be a part of that.